All right, let's get this going. Welcome to Talking Saratoga, a weekly podcast with insight on the latest news, debate, and discussion from Saratoga Springs, a city that has never suffered from a shortage of opinions. I'm Robin Dalton, a New York City girl turned Saratogian, city council veteran, and a mother to a bunch of kids who are responsible for this very disheveled look today. Apologize, you guys. I'm a little bit of a hot mess coming off winter break. I am also joined by my co-host, Dan DeFedericis, a native of the Buffalo suburb of Chickamauga, a retired, a retired New York State trooper, a past police union leader, an attorney, a publisher of the Saratoga Report, which you guys should all check out. It's a great site for news, a father of two beautiful daughters, and a lifelong beleaguered Bills fan. Adam Israel is also joining us. He is a lifelong Saratogian, a local business owner, a Pop Warner dad, and most recently dipped his toes into politics as an independent candidate for Commissioner of Finance. As a reminder, the opinions expressed on Talking Saratoga are our own. Why can I never pronounce that? Are our own, and do not represent any other group, person, or organization. We welcome all perspectives and opinions while Talking Saratoga, as long as they are expressed honestly and with mutual respect. Before we go any further, though, I want to introduce Adam Israel again. And Adam, talk to me about where you are right now and where you're going to be over the next couple days, because it's incredibly important and information that I think our viewers need to know about.
Yeah, so as many of you may know, I lived in Poland for a while last year. My wife is from an eastern city in Poland called Augustow. It's northeast, so it's not on the Ukrainian border, but it's close. And we have a car over there, and I've been following what's been going on closely. And it's just, it's a humanitarian crisis. With the people that are showing up at the borders, mothers with children in their arms. I've been following a lot of the social groups over there and talking to some people who are on the ground. And it's really as bad as it sounds like here. You have moms showing up with kids and nowhere to go and kissing their husbands goodbye and not knowing when or if they'll see them again. So I've started a collection of letters where I'm asking people if they'd like to get involved to write a letter to a Ukrainian boy, child, man, woman, whatever, family, and just give them some words of hope and $20 in the card and seal it. I'll be flying to Poland on Sunday to link up with some groups there, trying to provide some good. And it would be great to have these cards to pass around to the refugees as just a little sunshine in a very dark time in their lives. I've worked on programs like this before after Hurricane Irma and Maria in the Virgin Islands. At that point, we asked people to send, or I was the receiving and distribution end of this program, but boxes from the post-rate boxes, the pre-metered boxes, just to fill them up with stuff and mail them. The difference here is Poland has stuff. It's not like the islands were devastated. Islands were devastated. You couldn't buy anything. So anyway, if you're interested, you can write a card, put $20 into it. Just put some nice things in it, and I will deliver it to a Ukrainian refugee. And the latest, and I mean, this is where it really kind of grips your heart. The latest thing people need they need combat tourniquets. And I talked to somebody and it's real short. And yeah, and I know you get me teared up, but they cost $29 each. I'll be bringing as many as I can. So if you'd like to donate $29 to a combat tourniquet, I'll figure out the organization. I'm talking to somebody right now who has the ability to get them. You can write the check right to the company who's selling to me. And so, it's really kind of the contrast of cards and combat tourniquets, but I will be.
So Adam, where should people bring a card if they want to do just like a greeting card with $20 in it and some nice words of inspiration? Where should they bring that, or where should they drop that off?
Great question. So with the collection point is the Inn at Saratoga, the front desk there. You have till Sunday till noon to drop them there. Real quick, I want to plug tomorrow, actually at 5 p.m. in front of the post office. There's going to be a vigil for the people of Ukraine to show unity, and so you can bring it to that. I'll be at that vigil, or you can drop it off at the Inn at Saratoga. You have Sunday before noon, and I appreciate you. And I have a Facebook group. It's called Letters for Hope for Ukraine, and I'll kind of document my travels so you can see my travels throughout Poland trying to get these things to the Ukrainian refugees. So thank you.
And Adam, just so I heard that correctly, tomorrow, Thursday, 5 o'clock in front of the post office is the vigil. And by Sunday noon at the Inn at Saratoga, across from the Holiday Inn on Broadway, drop off the cards with the donation.
Yep, I'll be shipping out then. So Sunday noon in Saratoga is cut off. So thank you guys. Thank you, Robin, for letting me get that in there.
I just have to tell you, and it is gonna like make me cry again. It's just, I think this is a side of you that a lot of people don't know about, and it makes me really, really proud that when stuff like this happens, you just like jump in and go. And to fly to Poland right now is a scary thing, and it's not something that a lot of people are doing. And that you not only are doing that, but understand how to get aid directly to the people that need it. I just think it's like a really incredible thing, and I couldn't be more proud to know you and just for what you're doing. I think it's so incredible. So thank you.
The stars align.
Now don't make me cry.
Thank my wife too, because this is hard on her for me to go, but she understands that the importance of it. And I just, I have a car in Poland. I can get around. I can speak enough Polish to travel through the country. So we'll see where it leads me. Hopefully I can do some good. So thank you guys.
I echo Robin's sentiments. I very quick. I was driving through the ATM the other day, and the stories were on the radio news as I'm driving through. I felt so small. I felt like so ridiculous. Here I am getting money to lead my lifestyle, and these people over there are suffering. So Adam, my hat's off to you for going over there and helping. I'm happy to know you.
Well, thank you guys. All right. Well, I think we should transition to city council, right? Because it
was some lighter subjects. So first of all,
last night. So
I got to tell you, right?
Go ahead,
Adam. But I was just going to say, any minute now, we actually should have John Kaufman joining us on this Zoom call to give us an update on one of the issues that was talked about at the city council meeting last night. But you guys, city council meetings, I'm a dork. They give me great joy, okay? And this city council in particular has kept me entertained to a degree that I did not expect. So I don't know if you guys were able to see the whole meeting or some of the public comment, but just the public comment alone is like enough for our show. So did any of you guys notice anything jump out at you that you want to start with?
In the public comment period?
Yeah.
Well, I think this came after the public comment period. But it's something I want to talk about because I jeered James Montanino last week for his comments about gangster rap. And he made a formal apology. And Robin, again, you've sat in that seat before. You heard his apology. What do you think about what he said? What do you think about the apology? First of all, real quick, I give him a break. I think let's move on and keep going. But go ahead, Robin.
Okay, so all right. So basically, what happened last night is that there were a couple of people who came to public comment who were really critical of Commissioner Montanino and the things he had said about hip hop and gangster rap, and how it draws unsavory people to Saratoga Springs. And they made some really good points. And in particular, one person said, think about Dave Matthews Weekend. Do you have any idea what the uptick in crime is when Dave Matthews is here for the weekend? It's pretty incredible. But nobody says that Dave Matthews draws unsavory characters to Saratoga Springs, right? And there were also a lot of comments that were really on point about how stereotyping listeners of hip hop or rap music as being unsavory or being criminals, it's just really latent racism, and it perpetuates racist stereotypes that should be long gone this day and age, long gone. So I thought the criticism was warranted. What I was not anticipating was Commissioner Montanino's response to this. I thought that he would apologize quickly and succinctly. Instead, he began his apology by saying he was 66 years old, and that he's been to an Eminem concert, which let's just point out is like the one, famous white rapper. Like, okay, you've been to an Eminem concert.
Let's just say it.
Let's just say it. He then said that he's also been to a Lil Wayne concert. And then he went on to say that in the 70s, he hired a Black person where he worked. And in the 80s, he hired like 4 more African Americans, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure we're not saying African Americans anymore, Commissioner Montanino. But he talked about this, and he talked about how he'd gotten so much push and flack for, hiring people of color back in the day. And I literally was listening to him, and then he went back to Eminem. And he also said that, in one of Eminem's songs that he knows about, Eminem says something along the lines of, if you don't have a gun, pick up a rock and throw it. If you can't shoot somebody, just pick up a rock and throw it. And so for him, lyrics like that could incite violence. And it was basically the equivalent of saying, I'm not racist because I have Black friends. It was so painful. And I could hear, I think it was Camille Daniels. I could be wrong. So apologies if I'm wrong. But I could hear someone in the gallery saying, stop stop, you're just making it worse. You're just making it worse. And indeed, he did make it worse. You guys, I don't know what you think about that, but it is literally the most cringeworthy apology I've ever heard in my life.
He needs a handler is what he needs. Who too headstrong probably to get one. Joe Bruno, to his credit, had handlers, as well as some other very good politicians down in Albany. Marcia White was one of his handlers. On the front, she was a subordinate. Behind the scenes, she would say things like, "Don't say that," and things like that. And it helped Joe Bruno out. He knew enough to appreciate that. And Jim Montanino needs someone to help him not step on himself. The trouble is with the city council, at least a couple of people, and we're going to be talking about this later, is okay, they shoot themselves in the foot. A lot of politicians do that, but these guys reload quickly and they shoot themselves again. So they got to stop doing that and learn from their mistakes.
Adam, your thoughts?
I don't know if I could say. Yeah, I don't know if I could say this or not, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Is there anything whiter than quoting Eminem about throwing a rock as an example of gangster rap? I mean, it's yeah. That's all I'll say on it. That's all I'll say. I still respect him for doing that Rodero Mount report, so he's still okay in my book. He's just, Jim, apologize, move on. Anyway, speaking of moving on, the Caroline Street Walkers. Robin, do you want to explain the Caroline Street Walkers and what this is an issue that's been going on for some time?
Sure, absolutely. So Caroline Street School has had some parents who are complaining about the fact that there are no sidewalks to walk from east to west on Caroline Street to get to school. And there are people who live 2, 3, 4 blocks away, so they can't get picked up by a city school bus because it's not within the limit of where you get picked up at the city school bus. They don't want to drive. They want to be able to walk their kids to school, and there are no sidewalks on Caroline Street on that stretch, right? And so they started coming and talking to the city council and me specifically back in the fall. And I have to say they were pretty vicious in their approach. I mean, they went after my kids when they talked about how unsafe it was, saying that like my kids had it so good over at Lake Avenue. They criticized a picture I posted of my kids walking to school one day as like, I was rubbing in their face how safe my kids have it over at Lake Avenue, which was pretty unprofessional and uncool and made me a little upset. But essentially, the solution we ultimately came up with was, oh, look, here's, you know what, guys, hold on. We have, one sec, I believe we should have one Mr. John Kaufman. There he is.
Look at that.
John, can you hear us? He's connected. Can you hear us, Mr. Kaufman? Yay! Okay, guys, so we're going to get back to Caroline Street Walkers in a minute. First, I want to introduce who is actually our very first ever guest, Mr. John Kaufman, legendary Saratoga Springs politics, analyzer, commentary, follower, and also the author of the even more legendary SaratogaSpringsPolitics.com blog, which you guys, if you're into politics, if you're into local politics, this is the only blog you need to be reading. It is phenomenal. It's influential. He's changed the course of our city's history through what he posts on that blog. And we are thrilled to have him on Talking Saratoga today. So welcome, John.
Wow. Now that, friends, is an introduction difficult to live up to. But I'm really kind of honored to be with the three of you. You guys are great. I've been following your video stuff. I've been trying to promote it because I think, you got 3 different perspectives that are really fun. It's not like an echo chamber that these things can be. So anyways, I'm here.
So welcome. Yes, so we had invited John on to talk about an issue that was going on between Judge Jeffrey Waite, who's one of our city court judges, and Ron Kim. And the issue is a little bit complicated, and John's been covering it really well. So I was hoping that John could kind of tee us up and kind of lay out what's happened and bring our viewers up to speed as to what the controversy is.
Well, given the time restraints, this is really going to be kind of cryptic. I'm not going to go through a lot of the stuff between Waite and Mayor Kim. I prepared a few notes here, so let me just kind of go through them. The city is engaged in a pointless suit at an unknown expense. It has been impossible to get any explanation from the city as to what this suit is supposed to achieve that cannot be done by the code enforcement officer. So here's the items. Jeffrey Dumont, the owner of the Church Street Trust, was originally cited for work done without a building permit. Mr. Dumont was subject to a series of evidentiary hearings during which he pleaded guilty to doing work without a building permit And based on testimony by the city, the court set stipulations for Mr. Dumont to meet to bring him into compliance. Judge Jeffrey Waite vacated the conviction and vacated the stipulations that Mr. Dumont was to meet due to the failure of the city to appear. This is where the mayor didn't show up. It's important to understand that the hearing did not grant Mr. Dumont a building permit. Mr. Dumont currently does not have a building permit. For one thing, he has not received the required approval of the Design Review Commission. In addition, there is nothing to preclude the Code Enforcement Office from issuing the same stipulations for Mr. Dumont to meet. With this in mind, it makes no sense for the city to appeal the Waite decision, to go to court, because they have everything that they need. I have tried to get an answer from Mayor Kim as to what he is expecting to achieve with his appeal. He has ignored my inquiries. I have also tried to find out how much this appeal is expected to cost. After Mayor Kim failed to answer this, I emailed the Commissioner of Finance. She emailed me that the city has a retainer with Miller Mannix, which is a law firm, which provides the city up to which provides the mayor up to $50,000 to spend on land use related legal needs. Commissioner Sanghvi said she had no bills from the law firm to this point. She apparently saw no need to seek an answer to my basic question, which is, what's the anticipated cost? As the mayor refused to answer my questions regarding what was to be achieved by his appeal, I went to the city council meeting last night to ask if someone from the council, other than the mayor, would assist me by asking the mayor about this, and regrettably, no one did. So basically, I just don't see what the point of this appeal is if the concern is Mr. Dumont's building permit issue. And I'm afraid that a lot of this appeal has to do with the fact that Judge Waite's decision was kind of humiliated the mayor. It was highly critical of him.
So John, not to interrupt you for one sec, but just to kind of back this up for a quick sec for our viewers. So basically what happened was that there'd been a long-standing code violation and land use issue that had been in our city courts. And come January, there was a court date in which Mr. Dumont was supposed to be at. But Mayor Kim's office got in touch with Mr. Dumont and told him that he did not need to show up at this mandatory court date. Is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
And so that's when things kind of started to devolve. And so so what happened right after that? When Mr. Dumont didn't show up to court, what happened after that?
Well, when he didn't show up to court, what happened when Mr. Dumont did show up to court, it was when the mayor didn't show up to court. Basically, there's also one other significant thing, and that is that that the mayor's office had sent Judge Waite an email saying that they'd come to an agreement with Mr. Dumont's lawyer to ask for an adjournment, but they hadn't bothered to, in the email, that they hadn't bothered to copy whoever this attorney representing Dumont was supposed to be. And as it turned out, to the embarrassment of the mayor, there actually was no attorney. How this came to be that the mayor, wrote to him saying this is subject to speculation, but that didn't assist things. So basically, Judge Waite dismissed everything.
Gotcha.
So, John, what you're saying is that you think that Mayor Kim is pushing this forward now because he was embarrassed. There's no real objective or end game with this appeal. It's just to say, hey, this is, you guys made me look bad. I'm gonna fight this now.
Yeah, I would just say, Adam, you do property stuff and development, right?
I have before, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this man doesn't have a building permit, and he doesn't have the approval for design review. So, Adam, I don't gonna understand why the city would spend money. Did he stop building what he was building? Yeah, he has stopped. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So instead of going through the proper channels in the building department and code enforcement to get a building permit, Mayor Kim is deciding to appeal Judge Waite's dismissal, and is going to spend up to $50,000 to do so, even though we have the channels in City Hall in which we could address this for free, essentially. Correct?
That's basically it. That's basically,
if-
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, John. I cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to say, the thing that is really frustrating is you can't get anybody to talk about it. I mean, hey, I could be wrong. It's rare, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But what's bothersome is you can't engage these people. You know, It's like, what are we gaining here? Can't engage them.
If I could jump in here, John, excellent reporting on this. And I've been someone that's been trying to be supportive of Mayor Kim. And again, just before you came out, I talked about these politicians shooting themselves in the foot, then quickly reloading and shooting again. And that's what Ron Kim did here. Last week on this show, I said, Ron, congratulations. You put all that attorney issue behind you. We can move on. And in the 24-hour news cycle, so much has happened. He, besides the fact that he's misspending city money, and I agree with you that he is, he brought this back to the spotlight. His missteps in January and February were behind him, and he foolishly brought him. And before you came on, I said some of these politicians need a handler. I mean, and they need a rough handler, right? Someone that for their own good, some tough love behind the scenes, hits them with a 2x4 and says, "What are you doing? You're bringing this issue back to the forefront. This issue was dead." And he did that.
They do have handlers. They're called deputies, okay? And last night when James Montnino was going on and on, you know what Eileen Finneran was texting me? She said, if you were saying what James Montnino was saying right now, I would have tackled you out of that room. She was like, I would have physically removed you from the space. So deputies, step it up, kids.
Well, not only that, but the other thing in response to Dan is that he's taking a risk with Judge Murphy will be the one deciding this. Okay, there is every possibility, given the decision that Jeffrey Waite made, that Murphy might end up being critical of the mayor for the way he handled it. Why would you take that risk? I don't know.
John, question for you. Agree or disagree with this statement? This city council is not mindful of the fact that their primary obligation is to represent the will of the people and the will of the residents and spend our taxpayer money as we want, not as they want. Agree or disagree?
I guess I'd have to agree.
But let me ask you. You talked about a private firm handling this. We talked about last week how Tony Izzo's come out as kind of a part-time attorney. Would this be something that would be done by the city attorney if there was one, or would this rise to the level of going out to a private firm?
My sense is that this is the kind of thing that Vince DeLeonardis would have handled internally. We're talking about a pathetic case here. I mean, I just got direct. I don't know how closely Dan has followed this, but this is like an awful lot of energy about a guy who's a contractor who's never represented by an attorney himself. Okay, the guy is never represented, who's basically being held up. It's beyond me why it would get to this point.
And let's be clear, it wouldn't have gotten to this point had Mayor Kim done the right thing and appointed a city attorney on January 1st. Then the case wouldn't have been dismissed and we wouldn't be in this pickle at all. But now he's doubling down. He's not even doubling down. He's like tripling down at this point.
Exactly. He keeps bringing this back, which has been bad. This attorney issue is bad. A quick note, John, Commissioner Sanghvi could have been a little more forthcoming. She couldn't project the cost, but she could tell you the hourly rates. And she apparently didn't do that, or did she?
I know the hourly rate is $230 an hour for Mannix, Miller Mannix. But I would argue that you should be able to get an estimate. I mean, generally, most of us, when we're going to do something, somebody usually asks for some sort of estimate, because the question is, how much is this worth? I mean, it seems to me, Dan, that with respect, you'd ask that question, and that would be part of your decision about going forward.
Absolutely. As an official in a union, we often hired outside counsel, and we'd file Article 78s against the state. And the first question we'd say to the attorneys is, give us a range of likely, they could be wrong, but they a lot of experience there, so they can usually give you a pretty accurate guess within $1,000, $1,500 of what it might cost to do that. Shame on them if they didn't do that. But and no matter what the number is, it was high. It was obviously $230 an hour adds up quickly. And that could be $10,000 in a hurry.
It could very well be. The other thing related to this is I put in a FOIL request for the email that the mayor's office sent to the judge, the one that erroneously identified a mysterious non-existent attorney. Tomorrow is the 20th business day, okay? One of the things that they went on about was how poor a job, allegedly, the previous administration did with FOIL. And by the way, as somebody who's foiled the city many times, previous administration was excellent about responding. I rarely went 20 days. Okay.
Quickly, for those who don't know what a FOIL request is a Freedom of Information. It's from the Freedom of Information Act. So whatever the government does, the public has a right to see. So if there's an email, a document, you can put in a FOIL request and ask for said documents or something pertaining to a subject. And our city government has an obligation to respond to you within 20 days, as you said, John. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. And there are very few exceptions to the FOIL law. Almost everything in government is FOILable, with some very limited and important exceptions. For instance, law enforcement sensitive would be one category.
I also wanted to do a quick disclaimer here, you guys, because, as you said, we really like dissenting voices on this show, and we are not, here to just kind of validate each other's opinions. If you're comfortable with this, John, I just like to do a quick round robin here and disclose our political affiliations, if that's all right with you, so people don't know that. So, Adam, do you have a political affiliation right now?
I'm a rhino, right?
No, but are you registered with the party?
I'm a Republican name only. I'm not registered with the Republican Party because I did not agree with the previous administration, but to be able, and I know it doesn't matter in New York, but your vote, the active voting counts. I'm going to re-register as a Republican so I can vote in the presidential primary. So all right. I'm not a Republican now, but I will be by soon.
Dan, are you comfortable disclosing your political affiliation?
Yeah, I'm a very, very frustrated Republican that feels I have nowhere else to go. I'm of the maybe the Bush, George Pataki wing of the party, not the hard conservatives, not Donald Trump.
Mr. Kaufman, are you comfortable disclosing your political affiliation?
Yeah, sure. I'm in the Working Families Party.
Okay, well, I will tell you all that.
The Families Party or the old Working Families Party?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm a man without a party, actually. I like parties, and if you guys want to throw a party, I'll come. But
no,
currently,
you are a Working Families Party, not one of the Republicans who defected and became the Working Families Party. You're an old school Working Families Party member. Well, I'm happy to disclose to you guys that I'm actually a registered Democrat. So I think it's important for our viewers to know that, because we actually have a really balanced panel here, and I want people to know that this is not a political gang up. The 4 members of the city council, Skip Saratoga has been ill. Commish, we love you. We hope you're feeling better. But the current 4 members of the city council are all Democrats. And what I find bothersome about how they behaved is that political parties since I've been in Saratoga from 2008 have really never played a part in terms of how the city council has interacted and how they voted. On the 2 years I was on the council, there was never a single moment where another council member came to me and appealed to my party as to why I should vote with them. It just never happened. And the issues that face Saratoga are truly not partisan. But what I see with this city council are 4 people who are terrified, for some reason, to disagree with each other. They have a total groupthink thing going on, and they are unwilling to call out the bad behavior of their other city council members. And that is not a healthy democracy. Healthy democracies depend on productive disagreements, comprehensive discussions and disagreements, in my opinion.
Well, I'd also like to do one other thing. I'd like to plug Dan's news aggregate thing that he does. What do you call that? The Saratoga Report. What's
SaratogaReport.com.
Anyways, as a blogger, it's really helpful to me. I mean, I get up in the morning, and one of the first things I do is look at Dan's site, because it's very helpful in terms of finding out what's going on.
Well, John Kaufman.
What about what's going on in Saratoga, John? You ever check that out?
Actually, I will.
The whole different can of worms over there, but John, beware. Well, Mr. Kaufman.
That is helpful as well. I love that.
It can be.
I'm not just plugging him. That is up to the moment. If there's a car
I say sometimes we're Oprah, sometimes we're Jerry Springer. You know, you never know.
Well, Mr. Kaufman, you're the absolute best. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you'll be back.
All right. Thank you.
SaratogaSpringsPolitics.com, people. Go check it out.
Okay.
Big Bob,
Thanks,
Bob.
John.
You're gonna kill me, right? I don't see how I can kill myself here. Oh, there it is, leave.
I don't
there
want
we
to
go.
kill you. Okay,
Nice sniper in
bye.
the background there.
All right, you guys, let's get back to it. That was great. I loved having John on.
Our first guest, and
I know, our very first guest, guys.
with guns in the background.
Yeah, yeah.
I missed that. So you guys, I'm gonna kind of wrap up the Caroline Street Walker thing that we were talking about very briefly, and just say that the city council that I was on that ended at the end of December, we worked really, really hard to address this issue. And what we did was we applied for a grant through Commissioner Madigan's office for sidewalks, so we could have money to install sidewalks on Caroline Street. That's going to be a little bit of a challenge, though, because the stretch of Caroline Street that runs west from the intersection of Caroline and Circular is very narrow. So in all likelihood, to put sidewalks in there is gonna require people giving up some of their front yards. So that's going to be really tricky, but that was one thing that we did. The other thing that we did was that I signed an emergency order for no parking during drop-off and pickup hours on both sides of Caroline Street, running from that intersection about 6 blocks up. And if you go, you can see the poles that had been put into the ground by our traffic division and our guys in the Department of Public Safety traffic garage, who are freaking awesome. So they put all the signs up. They were ready to go. I don't know what happened between the end of December and January and February and March. For whatever reason, Commissioner Montenegro has not followed through with that. And so the problems that they've had continue to persist. And I think that's really disheartening, because we worked really hard to try to address that safety issue. And if you didn't have parking on both sides of the roads, there would be no issue with kids walking to school. You know, the thing that, though, I take issue with is that one or two of the mothers, one mother in particular, compares Caroline Street school drop-off to Lake Avenue school drop-off quite a bit, and makes it sound like Lake Avenue is completely spoiled because we have 3 crossing guards and we have all this great traffic pattern stuff worked out. Well, I have to say to that mom, you have no idea what you're talking about. We are comparing apples and oranges here. Caroline Street is one way for the block that Caroline Street Elementary is on. Caroline Street has a pull-off for the buses. Lake Avenue School has people coming through Regent Street, has people coming through Marion Place, has buses coming onto Marion Place, and has kids crossing Lake Avenue, one of the single busiest intersections we have in our city. And so to say that we have too many crossing guards and they should pull some from Lake Avenue and put them up by Caroline Street is, I found that really distasteful. And then they also said that I had shamed the parents of Caroline Street School because I had the audacity to suggest that the Caroline Street parents work with the PTA to see if there was a way parents could pitch in at arrival and dismissal to make things safer. That's something that we did pre-pandemic at Lake Avenue School all the time. The kids actually did it. The kids put on orange vests, they were trained, and they would come out and they would escort kids from their cars into school. And I just feel like the essence of being in a public school and being part of a PTA is always that you're ready to pitch in and help out when the resources don't allow the school to do it for you. You know, parents, you pitch in. So I don't know what you guys think about it, but I just I really take exception with some of their attitudes.
You know, my thought, Robin, is that you were on the front line of this. You have an opinion on it. I would like to invite anybody from this group to come in and kind of share their story of because I'm sure obviously they see it from a different angle and they're not I'm and hawing over this just because they got nothing to do or nothing better to do with their time.
Yeah.
So if anybody would like to come and talk to us about what they would their solution and how they would see these sidewalks working and why they're not working now, who knows, they'll take up. Robin will probably promise to be nice, right, Robin?
I promise. Pinky swear, promise.
So anyway, all right, moving on. We had the Civilian Review Board comment period this was the biggest thing in the last 3 or 4 city council meetings. I mean, the city council blew up, had to move to a bigger room, yada, yada. I mean, that was COVID, and now they had a civil comment period and what? Nobody showed up? 2 people showed up?
You guys, Dan, I don't know if you got this, but basically they've been having public hearings. So just to let our viewers know, there's a public hearing that are set before the public comment period starts. So there'll be public hearings. There were 2 last night. One for Chapter 136, which is we'll talk about later, but the other one was for the Civilian Review Board. Here's the deal. They've had, I think, now 2 or 3 of these public hearings. However, the Department of Public Safety and Commissioner Montanino has not released a plan or a proposal as to what his CRB would be. So he's asking people for feedback on something that he hasn't presented. Last night, after no one spoke, unsurprisingly, he said that by April 1st or at sometime in April, he would have some kind of proposal to show people so that they could come in public comment. But again, I just feel like this is all just like theatrics and ridiculous. I mean, like, why would you have a public hearing when you have nothing to present or to give people to give feedback on? Am I missing something, you guys?
No, I think you're correct on that. He's stalling is what it looks like. And
Yeah.
It's fine if he needs time. He's been in office 2 months. If he simply said, you know, we're moving forward, I don't have anything for you. Instead, he kind of wastes everybody's time in front of City Hall. You think he would have been sharp enough to have somebody come up and speak, you know, plan a Joe Citizen to show up and say a few nice things or something. And he didn't do that, but that's so it just feels like he's stalling and needs to move forward on that. And that's fine. If it's going to take him till April, I get it. I'm not offended by that part of it.
Yeah, and you know, for me, Robin, and we had one, like you said, Jason Golub, I believe, authored, put a lot of time and a lot of work into it. And if it's nothing else, it's a boilerplate. It was a jumping off point. It was, I know you were in favor of his proposal, but to go from something that the city worked hard on and people worked hard on to nothing, and then to talk about nothing just seems a little silly to me. But I will say, again, based on the report he did on Darrell Mount, I do hope and I think he'll present a plan for a CRB that works for both the police and the citizens. So,
all right, we've got two other quick things here, Dan, unless you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I just on the CRB, the Civilian Review Board, it's become to me almost like this panacea, like all our,
I know
it's like become a goal that I'm not saying it's not worthy, but it's almost like a head fake. There are some bigger issues. There's better things that can be done. And I'm not saying that a CRB should not be in the future, but it's almost like this goal that they've created that they're going to throw a celebration after they do it. And in the meantime, and I got to point this out, this is what I was going to talk about. And one part of what I got to say is it's kind of related to this, and that the fire department recently announced an exam for new hires. It expired yesterday, March 1st. And what a great opportunity to diversify the fire department, which is one female and one minority. Yet I did not see a thing anywhere, even a simple standard women and minorities encouraged to apply. I did not see any sort
you can't do that.
Effort. Okay, they used to be the case, but that has changed. But there used to be, the state police is good at standard hard recruitment efforts, and they get not as diverse as they would like to be, but more diverse than a lot of agencies, because they've been doing that for decades. And they reach out into communities, and they're very assertive at getting a diverse candidate pool. Again, not as much as they want. They recently announced that they're falling short, but they do as well as anybody. And I've seen my point is, I saw nothing from the city that I know of that they will be trying to attract a diverse candidate pool for this exam.
Okay, so I actually have a lot to say on that subject, but keep going.
Okay, they missed an opportunity. So when you go after the CRB as that holy goal that you're going for, you've missed an obvious opportunity that came and went.
First of all, the CRB being a panacea to all problems is just total. You guys, have we decided if we can curse on this show or not?
Fuck yeah.
Okay, sweet. All right. The CRB being a panacea to all problems is total bullshit, right? I have done so much research and so many countless hours of work on CRBs. And if you look around the country, more often than not, they fail than they succeed. And that's for a variety of reasons, but they do not solve all problems, even remotely, okay? I'm not even, well, whatever. I'll just leave it at that. Second of all, the Civil Service Commission is something that people really don't understand. And it's not something that I actually understood until I got into City Hall. And the way that we can promote the civil service exams coming up and reach a broader audience of people to potentially attract a more diverse group of applicants is a really important issue to discuss. But what you cannot do, what is illegal, and actually what has solicited a lawsuit in the past from the city, is that you cannot target people of color you can't target different races, you can't target different genders. That is not allowed, right? That's not allowed. But what I saw from the firefighters that I was actually really impressed about is that normally the civil service announcements, I wish I had one in front of me. Maybe I'll try to cut one in later. They're a white piece of paper with so much information crammed into them, just typed black information, just like crammed into them. And they're not something that is consumable in this day and age in 2022. So when I saw the fire department actually putting out like interesting visual eye-catching things for their civil service announcements, I was actually really impressed with that because I think that's a step in the right direction. But there has to be like a much more comprehensive conversation specifically with Carissa Salvo, who does an incredible job heading up our Civil Service Commission and is all about bringing in more diversity into our uniform services. She has a lot of ideas, but it requires sitting down with her and really coming up with a plan about how we get to kids. And I'm talking like we need to get into high schools, connect with coaches, connect with guidance counselors, and start talking to kids then about coming into our uniform services, you know, and prep people for eventually what will be a civil service announcement, because there's a lot of requirements on there in terms of physical fitness. When you're taking the test, you have to show up at a certain time. You have to be able to run a mile. You have to be able to, I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to hit to be able to pass the levels of the civil service exam to finally get to an interview. But what I found particularly, and then I'll stop talking, what I found particularly offensive actually, and again, Commissioner Montanino, we did not mean to shit all over you on this episode, but that's just kind of what's happening.
We did not plan that either.
We did not plan this. This is unplanned.
I'm supporting Jim. Jim, you still got my vote, buddy.
What he said, I read a quote of his, and he said that we had no people of color in our fire department, and I took that extremely personally because I actually did hire a person of color in our fire department almost 2 years ago, and he's a terrific firefighter, as are all of the firefighters we have in the SSFD. And for him to not know his people well enough to know that we have a firefighter of color is fucking shitty, James. Learn your people. I know you're obsessed with the police department, but get to know your freaking fire department because they're amazing and you don't know what you're talking about, okay? And then last comment, and this is not meant to like scold you at all, Dan, but I actually really take exception with the word minority. A minority suggests that you have less power. The majority has power. Minorities have less power. And so fundamentally, when we talk about people of other races as minorities, the suggestion there is that they do not have as much power or influence as the majority does. And so I really try super hard not to talk about a majority or minority when I'm talking about race. So that's just me, you know, take it or leave it. But just something. I'm not canceling anyone.
It just means there's not as many people, right? It's not a.
I know, but fundamentally the majority rules, right?
Well, I guess the majority rules, but
the terminology changes over time, and you hate to be caught with a passé term. I don't think you're saying that. I think that's more personal to you.
Yeah.
But it's
and Dan did see an Eminem concert too, so you gotta. So he's cool.
Yeah.
He can see that saying those things, but anyway, all right.
Anyway, just a thought.
What else, guys? Whistler Court, right? What's going on in Whistler Court, Rob?
So Whistler Court is quite kind of a long story, but I'll try to wrap it up soon because you guys, I can't believe I'm saying this. We're almost out of time. Whistler Court is out by Route 50. It's right up by the Northway. If you drive past EVI, the Fresh Market Plaza, you keep going. You hit an intersection where you could either take a left and get onto Route 50, or the VFW is on your right. You keep going, and there's a development that John Witt built back in the early 2000s that initially, when it was proposed, John Witt did have a special use permit back then. When it was proposed, it was going to be, you know, high-rise condominiums, but then it was also going to be built out with commercial and retail, and it was going to be kind of this whole hub where you could get all your stuff done, you know, within that little community out there. That project kind of stalled and it became just residential only. I believe it's a hybrid of condominiums and townhouses. Well, over the last 2 years, there's been a proposal to put workforce housing there. Additionally, there's been a proposal to put a satellite YMCA out there with daycare. And I believe there's another nonprofit group going out there that has to do, I could be making this up, so apologies if I am, that has to do with the backstretch workers and some of the services that are provided to the folks that work at the track. Could be making that up, but I'm 99% positive. What I am sure about is that it's going to be a place where there is workforce housing and there is going to be this childcare, and it is going to put a lot more pressure on the roads that go in and out of that development. Right now, we only have one lane streets that go in and that come out. And a lot of the comments that people were making in public comment last night, which were understandable, was that there had been moments where one woman said her carbon monoxide went off in her apartment, right? And so she called the fire department, and she was really surprised at how long it took the fire department to get there. Well, what happened is that there had been a storm and a tree had fallen across one of the access roads to get in there. So they had to turn around and come up with a smaller truck to get to her apartment, and that's why it took a long time. So she was understanding of that, but she was trying to illustrate the point that the access roads to get in and out, a single lane this way and a single lane that way, no sidewalks, no nothing, are not really suitable for the proposed development that is coming. They have also pointed out in their public comment that allegedly John Witt does not have the special use permits to be doing this. I can't speak to that. I don't really know. But I can see how there would be a lot of stress on those two roads, and I don't think that's a great thing. But what I do have a problem with is the kind of latent NIMBYism that was underneath some of the comments about, thinking that some of this workforce housing and affordable housing was not something they necessarily wanted to have in their development. Although I would say that was really kind of like the subtext versus the main problem, which was the infrastructure to get in and out of the development. So long-winded recap, but what do you guys think?
The issue with NIMBYism, I never really understood that, right? Because again, there's certain types of NIMBYism that take it so extreme, but somebody's yard or somebody's neighborhood, it's neighborhoods are sacred places, right? So if somebody goes into somebody else's neighborhood and tries to impose their will on the neighbors and the established communities, people use NIMBYism like it's automatically a horrible person. And I'm not saying in this case it's not, because we do need workforce housing, right? This is not, it's not like they're, I don't know, putting in some horrible thing there that's gonna, but it's just, that was my only, I never really understood this in the campaign. I got that a lot. I heard that word a lot, but I understand what you're saying is that could be, certainly, safety is an issue, but the safety could be masking the hey, not in my backyard. Dan, what are your thoughts?
These are discussions we are going to have forever on this podcast. As long as this podcast exists, we're going to have these types of discussions. And obviously, I'm well, maybe not obvious to people, but this, workforce housing sounds like a terrific idea. That area seems to me to be underutilized. At the same time, I want to respect neighbors' concerns and that, and I'm hoping there is an answer in between, because there's so much good that can come out of that. But I don't want to just trample over people's rights. I'm not a NIMBY until you propose something next door to me, and then all of a sudden I've got a family. Right. That's how that often works, right? We're all for these feel good projects somewhere else, but we have concerns when it literally is next door. I think we have all the potential, no matter what we say. We all have the potential to be there, but we are going to be talking about issues like this forever. But when I hear that there's actually a plan for workforce housing in the city, we should all rejoice. At the same time, respect how it does affect other people and try to find some common ground.
You guys, next podcast, maybe I can talk about this longer, but I'm going to disagree with both of you on the NIMBY thing and tell you that you don't know what you're talking about, because I live on Caroline Street. Yes, I live in the downtown urban core, but several years ago, it was announced that Code Blue was going to open up four houses down from where I live with my young children. I freaked out initially because I didn't have the information, and I was immediately labeled a NIMBY, like all over social media. Like I got crucified. Well, I was just looking for answers to some questions, right? I got the answers to the questions that I needed. Code Blue lived on my block for 3 years. It was one of the most transformative experiences of my life, and it was so positive, and I was so proud to be able to host a Code Blue for that period of time. So I have a different perspective on the whole NIMBY thing because I've lived it, and I'm the only single family house on the block. So not a lot of people can speak to the experience that I've had. But again, topic for another time, because I could go on and on. At this point, we should really be wrapping up, and I want to get to cheers and jeers because I know we have a lot to say. Dan, Adam, who wants to start?
All right, I'll start. The first thing, I just want to cheer. We talked about these letters for Ukraine, and again, you get choked up talking about this. As we're talking, my wife sent me a text that the Lake Ave PTA is going to pay for cards to hand out to the teachers so the kids at Lake Ave can send letters to Ukraine. So, awesome. And that's not. I know there's other PTAs. It's really something special to see our community coming together. and it's Putin's. Hey, congratulations! You bringing together a country that had some serious cracks in it. So that's my cheer. Thank you to everybody who's doing the cards. My jeer goes to the Dake family. They backed down on Snake Hill. There's going to be no development there.
Bad!
There's going to be no. They caved to the hippies. And if anybody gets bitten by a snake, because there's not houses on that hill, it's on the Dake family. So that's my jeer.
Dan, you're off. That's hysterical, Adam.
It segues perfectly to my cheer, because my cheer was that same decision by the Dake family, by Spirit Shops, and especially a cheer within that to the Saratoga Lake Association that handled that beautifully. The leadership of that handled that beautifully. They were very classy about it. Firm but classy, and maybe they would have had to ratchet it up later, but they just came in a positive way to the Dake family and essentially said, please hear us out. And they apparently, I don't know if, well, there was a letter written. I don't know if there were any meetings had or so forth. And just to show my appreciation, I'm going to eat an entire half gallon of Crumbs Along the Mohawk ice cream, a delicious Stewart's flavor of ice cream, because I feel that good. My jeer, I have to shift midstream here. I had an entire jeer for Jim Montanino.
Whoa!
I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm a human. I'm human, Jim. Believe it or not, we're human. We can't do it to you. But I will say, listen, the morale of the police department is important, and it's important whether it's important to the good of this city. If you have poor morale, you have absenteeism, you have discipline issues, you have attrition losses, and you lose experienced police officers, and you have to spend a lot of money to recruit, hire, and train new ones. So I'm not going to jeer him, but there are issues for a future show that we need to talk about that yes, there needs to be balance. There are issues here. I'm not 1,000,000% behind the police department. When they're wrong, I will point that out. But Jim Montanino has initiated some things, and he's announced some things that I think are terrible, and I've confirmed it, that it's affecting the morale of the police department, and he cannot be a bull in the china shop. He's a very experienced attorney, but that doesn't mean he's an experienced labor attorney, and it's showing. But Adam, to your point, he has brought some good things to the table. So let me acknowledge the good of him, but point out I have concerns that he is harming the police department.
Okay, my cheer and jeer for the week. My cheer goes out to Saratogians everywhere, especially in my little neighborhood, because we just came off winter break. I know this is kind of cheesy, you guys, but I never thought I would live in a community where my little kids would be able to wake up in the morning because their friends were knocking on the door with their sleds, and they could go out by themselves and go sledding in our neighborhood, just like people did in the olden days. And rove around the neighborhood and go to Congress Park and when I'm talking about without parental supervision, okay? And it's just been like the sweetest thing, and I'm just so, again, just happy that I live in a community like this where everyone looks out for each other, everyone looks out for everyone else's kids, and from parents to business owners to residents in general. And I'm so appreciative that we have that here, and I hope we hold on to it forever, because it's an incredible way to raise your kids. Takes a village, and we have a village. And so, thank you, Saratoga. My jeer is going to be a little bit harsher, guys. My jeer goes out to two people. Todd Shimkus is number one. Todd Shimkus, if you're hearing me, every time you go into politics, things go to shit. Keep your hands off of politics. Stick to the Chamber of Commerce. Stay in your lane, buddy. I'll go into that more next week. My second jeer goes out to Dylan Moran. Dylan Moran, you suck. I'll get into it next week, guys. I'll elaborate next week. But Dylan Moran, you suck. I know. Harsh cheers. Making friends all over the place, guys. All right, that's it for another episode of Talking Saratoga. You guys rock. Adam, Godspeed to Poland. Thank you for doing such great work.
Next week I'll be in Poland, hopefully.
Everybody get your cards to the Inn at Saratoga, and we will see you next week. Thank you guys so much.
Stay classy, Saratoga.
Over and out.